I'm not going to just fade away. I'm going to fight back?
I was in a lot of therapy, and at one point I just started thinking, I'm not the only person out there. And I started thinking about, I need to give hope to others. As been a nurse for over 20 years now, it's just in my nature to want to be able to help reach out and help others heal as I have, because I know the feelings of being so desperate and lonely and the pain that's out there. So I started writing this essay, and the VA has some wonderful programs, and this was an art therapy program where I was able to speak out about it, and I was like one of the first people to speak out about trauma, and it wasn't really talking about that, but to give hope. And the more I started talking about that, that's when I started reaching for social media on Facebook and reaching out. And I found out about Service Women Action Network, and they were having their first summit back in 2012. So I'm like, I have to go. This is about going there, meeting my congressmen, talking to them, letting them know about what is going on. So while I was sitting there, Jennifer was there.
There's the connection.
Truth and
There it
Justice
is.
Summit.
There it is.
That's why we
Yes.
were there, the first ever.
Yes, and I went to the second one also, it's just both of them impacted me so, because on the second one there was over 200 victims there,
Wow.
200 people in one room that had been raped, and that was powerful. Being able to go to my congressmen, being able to tell them about why I am here. One of the congresswomen that I talked to, she's like, well, you're not in my district. And I was like, I'm the only person from New Hampshire, and I'm not here just for my district. I'm here for the ones who can't come yet.
Very well said. It's very well said. And when your goal, obviously you want your own wrongs righted. Every person in the world would want that. But when people are willing to stand up for others also, that just makes a huge difference. So the Military Justice Improvement Act is a bill that is going to be voted on. When do we think that might happen?
Well, we're hoping that it'll happen when Congress comes back from their summer break, which I don't even like saying, but...
I know. Don't you all get a break, right? Do we all get summer breaks,
Yeah, while they're taking their breaks, we've got major crises going on, and it really pains me to even have to say that. But when I got out of the military, it was about the time, I think this is important to note, it was about the time that the Invisible War movie came out. It's a documentary that was made about real victims and survivors of military sexual trauma, and it basically just kind of laid out what has been happening over the last 20-something years since they've known about it since Tailhook, and how it's progressed, and you basically see the patterns of retaliation in each and every case. And that's what gave me the momentum to really move forward. I had stepped forward because I had all the documentation of the retaliation.
Right.
So I felt strong in myself.
Right.
Here's how amazing I was, not to toot my own horn, but I was super troop. And then here's everything that I experienced unnecessarily and how it contributed to me being sick. And once I stepped out into the arena and decided to start talking is when I realized I wasn't the only one. Then I saw the Invisible War. All their stories were exactly my story. I'm like, this movie gave me everything I needed to fight with every ounce of my being.
How do people find that movie? Would you know is that something you can
Yes.
help us out with?
Yes, it's part of the reason I brought it up. It's www.invisiblewarmovie.com. You can see it on Netflix. You can buy it from Amazon.com. It's everywhere. And it's a very, very educational film to give the common person or the lay person a good idea, if they've never served in the military, kind of how it works. And it's really educational. So I use that tool to help me gain momentum with civilians and military and other professionals within my own state. And now I'm spreading it throughout New England because, like Judy said, you know, she's speaking for the people that can't yet. Our active duty can't speak right now. It's basically against the law. They have to get permission to be able to speak.
Yeah.
So we're speaking for them, and here's my documentation to show you that this is real.
So this Military Justice Improvement Act is something that everybody that's watching the Freedom Network, it doesn't matter if you're on the left, if you're on the right, if you're in the middle, that doesn't matter. This is our military, and you know me, never a loss for an opinion, so I'll always give you one. This is something you need to get on the phone. And you need to call your congressman, call your senators. Doesn't matter where it's starting, where it's going, it's irrelevant. We were talking about that before the program started. It's the awareness, and it's the fact that we need to take care of the people that take care of us, right? So you pick up the phone and you make the phone call. And you don't have to have a big conversation with your representative. You just tell them. They may not even have heard about this yet, or they may tell you they haven't heard about this yet.
Right.
But call and tell your friends to call. Get everybody involved, because it's just a. I'm going to go and watch that Invisible War movie as well. I would suggest that you do the same thing. Yeah, I have some stats here that I just wanted to toss around. I think that we don't often realize, you know, when people talk about things, how big the scope can be. Now, we had floated around, I had been looking at some stuff, looking it up online, and there was 20 plus, now I've just learned, 25 plus thousand cases like this a year happening in our military, right? That's unacceptable. We cannot stand for that. As citizens, we can't stand for that. So in 2009, 2010, right, of all these assault cases, what we saw were 239, well, 2,039, well, about 2,000 cases. And when you look at the statistics from that, we have declining participating victims, which is the retaliation that Jennifer is talking about, because they're afraid of the retaliation, is 322 of them. That just, sorry, I'm not going to take part in this. And that's because they don't feel comfortable to take part in it. There was non-criminal punishment 300 times. There was commanders declined action 500, almost 500 times. I'm pushing it a little bit, but it's well over 450 times. The court martials that they had, the numbers just amaze me. Convicted of another charge, 114. There were 551 of these court martials. 114 of them. I mean, that's roughly a quarter of them. They convict for other things. So when they do that, why do they do? Is this for?
Great lead-in.
Is that to? So hey, you know what? You violated this policy, so I won't look bad. The military won't look bad, or I as a commander won't look bad. We're going to convict you of trespassing. I don't know. How does that work?
This is exactly why the Military Justice Improvement Act is so important. Right now, the way it stands, if you get raped in the military or assaulted or harassed, you need to report that to your commander. The Military Justice Improvement Act would take the commander out of the equation so the person can report the violent crime directly to the agency that would be responsible for the investigation, deciding on whether or not it was going to go to trial, victim care. We want all these things wrapped up into one, neat little package so that the victim will feel safe enough to report the crime, as opposed to the way it is now, which is they don't dare report the crime to the commander because of the fear of the retaliation. And the numbers that you just gave were beautifully stated. 500 times in that year, a commander decided on his own accord, no, I'm not moving forward with this case. Well, what we're trying to say is you, commander, are trained to be a war fighter. And we want you to be a war fighter, and we want you to be the best war fighter that you can be. But to ask you to spend 80% of your time on 20% of your people and turn yourself into an investigator, a prosecutor who's going to determine if a case goes forward is just unreasonable.
Yeah, so the Military Justice Improvement Act, as I understand it, is a vehicle, right, so that the people that need to run the military run the military. We have a police force. We have a police force here in Stoughton. There is an internal component to that. And then there is the face of the police. You don't see the internal component to that. They exist, and they police the police. It seems as though no one is policing
They're not.
the military. It's not a burden that a commander should have.
You wouldn't have the mayor researching and prosecuting
Right.
rape amongst his people.
That's
Well,
That's what
good
the
example.
police and that's what the lawyers do. And that's what needs to be done in the military. Many times these leaders are saying, well, I'm not going to have the leadership, I'm not going to have the ability to command my people. And it's like, that's an excuse. If you're a good leader, you should be happy that this part is taken away from you. Many commanders think that this is a blemish to their command, but what is a blemish is that they're not being real leaders. A real leader cares about the people who are in their command, and they are strong enough to say, this is what's wrong, and I am advocating for all of my people here. If it was a higher ranked person, I would be inflamed that he is trying to abuse and commit these crimes amongst the lower enlisted versus, oh, I'm just going to shove it underneath there. My general's going to think that I'm a terrible commander. That general should be advocating for his captains that are in the company to be a leader who takes care of his people. And that is what is not happening, and it is happening time and time and again. Those commanders are going up in rank, and that is what happened when the Senatorial Armed Forces Committee had this meeting. The generals came and they're saying, well, we won't have effective leadership in our command if we take this out, but that is not true. Right. It needs to be taken out so that those who are so that the criminals can be punished, as well as, what's more important, those who have had these crimes happen to them can get the justice that they well deserve.
And the care.
And the care.
And they do. Yeah, they really do. I mean, anybody that watches the Freedom Network certainly knows that there's probably not a more staunch supporter of the military, of the Constitution, and all that kind of stuff. That's what makes America great. And I, for one, as a very involved, concerned, and activist kind of citizen, don't want to stand for 3 seconds for a military that's anything but. That's the most important social program we have. The most important thing we have is the military. Without the military and the proper military, then the rest of it is subject to just wither away. So in an issue like this, I don't just demand that action be taken so that we have a sound military and talk about it. I will call my congressman, I will call my senator, and that's why you need to do the same thing, because it's not about the small individual. It is to the small individual, but in the big picture of America, it's about a healthy military that's prepared to defend this country, not about commanders worrying about, well, this guy's going to think I don't know what I'm doing, and this one is going to be mad at me, and that's why they take it out of their hands in the police and in other institutions, even in businesses. Mm-hmm. There is no corporation out there that does, let's say, $500 million and more, that doesn't have a sexual harassment as well as a retaliation policy that exceeds what the law is. And it seems to me like here, we're below the line of the law. Mm-hmm. That's unacceptable to somebody, especially like me. Do you find that you get, when you tell your story, and when you tell the big picture story, and you talk about the Rape Crisis Center, the Justice Improvement Act, and that kind of stuff, what is the citizen citizen vis-a-vis military input back to you, do you get people that are wanting to get involved? Do you feel more pushback from the private sector or from the military?
To be honest, from the military, they have a lot to hide right now, and it's because of that commander piece within the chain of command and the way that crimes are supposed to be reported right now. It's huge. I mean, 62% of the folks that didn't report because of fear of retaliation. And then to add insult to injury, you've got a commander who may be worried about the future of his career for a predator that he has absolutely no control over. That commander shouldn't take a fall for a predator within his ranks.
You're absolutely
It should never be used against the commander to take down his career. Yes, should the commander should the commander be able to say openly, I will not tolerate this criminal activity within my ranks without it impacting a future case? Yes, they should, but right now, because of command discretion, they have to be careful about what they say all the way to the president, because he's in our chain of command, about people in the military misinterpreting it as a direct order.
Are you finding that you get political help on this, or are the politicians a roadblock, or are they a help? And I'm sure that there's some on both sides. But why would someone, what is the reason, if you've spoken to a politician, somebody up, you talked about that you had been to lots of conferences and spoke with them, why don't they want to address this?
I believe that the congressmen do. We have been very fortunate on the East Coast